All right. Hey, everybody. Hope everyone's doing good. Give it a second here. Hope everybody is having a great day. If you have a bottle of Estrella, I hope you have it open, or Corvent. And if you don't, I just hope you have a glass of something. So crack open your bottle of wine or whatever beverage you're having and get ready. It's going to be a really nice tasting tonight. This is definitely one of our high-end Syrahs that we produce at Zaca. It's going to be a really cool story of how these vines came to our winery. Hey Jeff, good seeing you last night. That was a great tasting. Thanks again. All right, let's get started, guys. So, a couple announcements. Well, first I should probably introduce myself for those who haven't watched before. My name is Garrett. I'm the brand ambassador and tasting room manager and sommelier at Zaca Mesa Winery. This is another edition of Zaca Mesa at Home. Tonight we're doing the 2015 Estrella Syrah. I usually have my beautiful and lovely wife / director. She's not here tonight, so I will be riding solo. So if you guys have any questions, please put them on the page and I'll get to them as we go through the tasting tonight. Schedule coming up. We have this Saturday. You do not want to miss it. I will be sitting down with our head winemaker, Kristen Bryden. It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll be tasting a couple wines, talking about Santa Barbara County, talking Zaca Mesa. Should be a really fun tasting. Kristen was promoted to head winemaker in 2016, so she's fairly new for Zaca Mesa, but she's been with us since 2011 as assistant winemaker. So it'd be really fun to sit down and talk with her. She's an amazing winemaker. She has a great way of explaining things as well. Tonight we are going to be doing the 2015 Estrella Syrah. Also, 100% for sure, next Saturday, the rescheduled winery tour is happening. I will be at the winery next Saturday, and I will be going through the production facility. I apologize for the couple of reschedules we had, but I am cleared to go through the facility. So next Saturday, I'll be doing the winery tour. This Saturday is the sit down with our head winemaker, Kristen Bryden. June schedule is up on our website, so if you want to get the wines that are going to be in June's tasting, this is the time to purchase them. We have a nice little promo going with that. 15% off for our non-club members, 30% off for our club members for those 6 wines that are going to be featured next month, plus the $5 shipping, always $5 shipping on 3 or more bottles. So check that out on our website, zacamesa.com. Let's get started. We're going to be doing the Estrella. So Estrella Syrah, for those who don't know, is a fairly new Syrah program for us, but it's definitely not a new varietal. Zaca Mesa has been doing Syrah since our very first planting in 1978. Since then, Syrah has been our main varietal focus since the early 90s. So that original planting is kind of plays a large part in this particular bottling. So I'm going to rewind it a little bit, bring it back to the beginning of Syrah in being planted at our vineyard, which will lead to how this particular Syrah bottling got going. Feel free to drink as we go through this, because I'm going to have a few sips before we get into the long story. Oh, that's good. All right, let's start from the beginning. So back in 1978, our original head winemaker, Ken Brown, who's definitely one of the I like to call one of the founding fathers or godfathers of Central Coast winemaking. He was very good friends with another Central Coast founding winemaker, Gary Everly, out in Paso Robles. At the time, he had the Estrella River Winery. We already have the connection there in Estrella. Gary Everly, his UC Davis professor, had gone over to Northern Rhone in a place called Hermitage, which is one of the most highly regarded Syrahs in the world. Had apparently brought back some undocumented suitcase clippings from the Chapoutier vineyard in Hermitage, brought them back, and was basically using them in his UC Davis class in viticulture. He had reached out to Everly to see if he would like to try planting some out in Paso Robles. At that time, there was no Syrah in the Central Coast area. So Gary Everly had decided to plant that clone. Everly had reached out to Ken Brown and asked the same thing, basically. You want to try planting some of this out in San Ynez Valley? So Ken Brown got the vines and planted 3.5 acres. And that was our very first Syrah planting. That was back in 1978. At that time, there was no Syrah in Santa Barbara County. So that was the very first planting of Syrah in Santa Barbara County. Today, Syrah is the number 3 planted varietal in Santa Barbara County. So we definitely, Zaca Mesa definitely played a big part on the beginning of Rhone varietals, and more specifically Syrah in Santa Barbara County and the Central Coast. So Ken Brown planted the 3.5 acres. That block is now called the Black Bear Block. It got its name from our vineyard manager, who was out at the vineyard one day, Ruben. He was out there, drove out there, his dogs went running out of the truck straight up to where these vines are planted, and there was a black bear eating some of the grapes off the vine. The dogs chased the bear up this tree, and from then on they kind of dubbed that block the Black Bear Block. And the Black Bear Block Syrah has been our prestige Syrah bottling. It's definitely a big fan favorite in our tasting room and wine club. It's just over 100 cases. It's a very small production wine. Those vines now are over 41 years old, so they're very low yielding because of the age of vine. So we get these more concentrated. We get about 1/3 of the yield on average comparatively to our other blocks. So it's very small, but it produces such a beautiful wine. So we keep making it. The other factor is too, they're so spaced out, so it's not really high density because of the equipment that was used back in. So that parcel is very unutilized in the way that everything's spaced out. The low yielding part, but the quality of grape that produces is just tremendous. So in order to keep those vines going, as those vines get older and older, they produce less and less. They're more susceptible to different bacterias. Gary Everly's original Syrah planting died of phylloxera back in the 90s, and so ours became that last remaining original planting of Syrah on the Central Coast. So we definitely want to keep those vines going, and we'll keep making wine from it as long as it keeps giving us grapes. But to keep the dynasty of that varietal and that single clone going, which is the Estrella clone, we decided to take cuttings from that block and replant it right next to it. It's kind of, we nickname it the baby bear or the cub because it's from that original Black Bear Block vineyard plot, and now it is been planted right next to it in a few sections right next to the Black Bear Block. It's we call it Mesa C is the name of that section. So we kept that clone alive, kept that clone going, and now that program, which was those cuttings were planted back in 2012, went into the Estrella Syrah program. So this is the wine that we're going over tonight. It's a single clone Syrah from our oldest Syrah vines. And also some really cool news, we just recently found out, we took those cuttings from Black Bear, sent them off to UC Davis to get designated as our own clone. Because they've been in our vineyard for so long, they actually begin to change DNA wise. So those vines now are we've been given the sanction of our own clone designation. So it's a Zaca Mesa clone, which is really cool. Once they go through a certain process, we'll get those cuttings back, and we can replant that, and we can dub it the Zaca Mesa clone, which is really cool. I mean, to have your own clone is pretty amazing. Those vines have been there for so long. So Estrella, these are the cuttings from the Black Bear Block that were planted in 2012. This is another very small production wine. This block is hand-picked, just like all our grapes for our programs. Hand-picked, we throw into tank, 5-ton tanks, but the blocks are separated. So Kristen, our winemaker, actually separates the little subsections of the Estrella block, of the Mesa C block, which is Estrella. So these blocks are separated, they ferment separately, they'll age separately for about 16 months in barrel, and we do about just over 20% new French oak on this as well. So they'll be aged separately for 16 months, and then for the last 5 months, these barrels are hand selected by our winemaking team, and depending on which barrels are selected, those go into the Estrella program. So we also have a program called Clydesdale, which some of those Mesa C blocks go into, but these ones are the best of the best. These are the best of Mesa C, and that goes into our Estrella program, which is named after that single clone Estrella. All right, let's get to the fun part here. So I use my my Riedel, the Zaca Mesa Riedel Rhone Hermitage glass, which is designed specifically for Syrah and Rhone varietals. So just this specific glass just does an amazing job highlighting the characteristics in Syrah. Now Estrella is the Syrah for the old world Syrah drinker. I mean, this is a meaty, leather, spicy, cured meats, dried violet, graphite, rich, dark, black, and blue fruit. I mean, this is just a really like old world classic style Syrah. And probably a big reason for that is because that original clone, coming from Hermitage, just has that like dried leather and meatiness to it. This is so nice. Oh yeah. Now this is a great wine that you're going to want to pair with some filet, ribeye, lamb roast. If you have that lamb roast with that, what's that, like mint jelly that you get with lamb, it's so good because it has this kind of almost like eucalyptus kind of menthol note to it. But just a beautiful, big, structured, dry style of Syrah. If you guys have any questions, at any time, just throw them on in. It's working here. Excuse me. So, Estrella Syrah is aged for 21 months total, about a little over 20% new French oak this particular vintage. 15 as a vintage was a pretty big vintage as well. We had a pretty warm summer in 2015, a little earlier harvest, and we picked earlier to kind of combat that growth, so the sugar levels didn't spike too high. But this is a really nice, dense, rich vintage. Susan asks, what's the alcohol on the Syrah? So on this particular Syrah, so most of our wines that are grown at Zaca Mesa range from 13.5 to 14.5. That's kind of the range. This guy is 14.5. There you go. So 15, like I said, kind of a bigger vintage, so it's gonna be a bit richer. Jay asks, what are the number 1 and number 2 grapes planted in Santa Barbara County? If Syrah's number 3. So Chardonnay and Pinot Noir are 1 and 2 in that order in Santa Barbara County. So Santa Rita Valley, Santa Rita Hills, very heavily planted with Pinot and Chardonnay. But Syrah is a strong number 3. I'm trying to remember what number 4 is. Can't remember what number 4 is. I would imagine it's probably, if I was going to take a guess, probably Sauvignon Blanc or I don't think it'd be Cab. Maybe Grenache. I don't know. But 1 is Chardonnay, 2 is Pinot, and 3 is Syrah. Those are the most heavily planted varietals in Santa Barbara County. Most of the Pinot and Chardonnay is coming from Santa Maria and Santa Rita Hills. Most of the Syrah is coming from Santa Ynez Valley and Ballard Canyon. San Ynez Valley is just right where we are. Resp for life. You mentioned the glass. Is it better to have a taller glass, larger, or wider? So, I mean, this particular shape is a bit taller. So I did a glass tasting little seminar a couple weeks ago, and you can catch it on YouTube. And I go over all that in more detail. But yeah, the taller the glass is better. It creates more space between where the wine is to where it's reaching at top, and which helps kind of the alcohol burn off a little bit. So taller glasses are better. You don't want to fill it. This glass, you probably don't want to fill it past there if you're just having a glass. You want to leave about 2/3 of whatever glass you're using empty, so you can really get a good swirl, and you have that space in between for oxygen to get in to hit the wine. Oh man, a lot of dried violet. I mean, it's very floral. It's a beautiful wine. If you're a club member and you're familiar with the Black Bear Block Syrah, or you are just familiar with the Black Bear Block Syrah overall, you need to try Estrella. It's very comparable to Black Bear. It is that clone. It's those cuttings from that block. There's a lot of Black Bear lovers out there that are, it's Black Bear or nothing. But I think you'd be really pleasantly surprised if you tried the Estrella. And it is $10 cheaper a bottle, so you can save a couple bucks. And this is this wine goes into our Reserve Club shipment. So we have a Reserve Club, which is an addition to your regular wine club. And it's 2 shipments a year, and Estrella is one of those shipments. Estrella is not a wine that we actually normally don't discount, but you do get a discount as that club member during that shipment time. So that's one of the perks of being in that wine club. Machine Gun Kaylee, Estrella is my favorite. Hey Kaylee. Kaylee Rue is our lab tech over at Zaca Mesa. Kaylee, Estrella is her favorite. That's not a bad choice. A good oak profile on there. 21 months, just over 20%. It's not super dominant, but just adds that nice little touch of baking spices and that little roasted oak note. Susan, going back to your comment, DNA, is it unusual for the DNA to change over time? What causes it? So it's not unusual as something adapts to the environment that it's in, with specifically grapevines. It will change. So when that vine was originally planted, will be different than 40 years down the road after it's adapted to its environment and the soil. So yeah, there is a change. It's not unusual. That's just a part of a grapevine, so a process that it goes through from longevity. I was having this conversation on a private virtual tasting I had last night, and I had a question about age of vine. What makes old vine? In California, we don't have the opportunity to have 100-year-old vines really, because we haven't been making wine that long, and also we had prohibition. For the grapevines that were planted, I mean, almost all of them were pulled out, and other things were planted that could actually make money during that time. So we don't have super old vines. So vines that are 40 years old, like the Syrah, is pretty amazing. And if you go to European countries, France and Germany, they have vines that are over 100 years old. And without World War II, they would have vines that are even older than that, but a lot were destroyed during the war. But we are pretty young when it comes to, as California is pretty young when it comes to winemaking. So we don't have tons of super old vines. So vines that are 20, 30, 40 years old, that's pretty rare in California. Bien Nacido, which is in Santa Maria Valley, I believe they have the oldest Pinot Noir vines, which were planted in 76. So you think, that's not that old. It's only 40 plus years old. But that's old. Those are old vine for California. If you do want to order this wine, there's no discount at this time, but you can get, if you order 3 or more bottles, you get $5 shipping. Like I had mentioned, if you go on our website, we have the June calendar posted. We have a promo going with the wines that are on the June schedule. So if you want to, pick up any of the wines, there is a nice discount on that. 15% for non-club members, 30% for our club members. We also have a really killer deal right now on these last of vintage wines. So we have a small quantity of wines that are just at the end of their vintage, and it's time to sell them so we can get the next vintage out. Due to the COVID-19 situation, without having our tasting room open, we don't have the opportunity to sell as much. So, having this promotion to help move some wine is a real plus for you guys. We have our 2017 Chardonnay on that, the 2017 Pinot, 2017 Viognier, 2017 Grenache Blanc, 2016 8-barrel, 2014 Z3, and that deal is six or more bottles, 30% off, and if you get a case or more, you get 35% off for club members. Non-club is 10 and then 15%. So super killer deal right now. Gary Johnson, thanks for the quick shipment last week. I got the Estrella and enjoying it tonight. All right, looking forward to ordering more now. Awesome, Gary, thanks. Glad you're having some Estrella right now. Also, don't forget, guys, if you purchase 3 or more bottles, you can schedule a private virtual tasting. So you can just email me, Garrett, Garrett, at Zaca Mesa. I'm going to post it right here. My Instagram is SomDad30. Post it right here. There you go. To anybody that's made a purchase recently or is planning on purchasing 3 or more bottles, you can schedule a private virtual tasting with me. Those have been really fun. I've done quite a few of them now. And it's about an hour long, so it's a good time. You can connect with other people, send a couple bottles to friends or family and get them in on it. Oh man. So you can get all this information on our website, zacamesawinery.com, to check out our current deals or order any wine. I'm stopping by Saturday to pick up some more rosé, and I picked up a bottle of the Zodovich Chardonnay to try. Nice. I hope you scheduled a pickup for Saturday. We are offering pickups at the winery on Saturday by appointment. So if you are planning on coming out to the winery, just make sure you call ahead to when you call the winery, it forwards it to me, or email me, and to set up a pickup time at the winery on Saturday. And at that time, if you have a card on file, you can add wine while you're there. Just an update on our current situation of when we're going to reopen. We don't have a word on that yet. We're still waiting, but when we do get the green light, we'll be ready to go. And I'm very anxious and excited to get back at the winery. I need some dinner with this right now. So again, guys, the Estrella Syrah, single clone Syrah, took cuttings from our oldest Syrah vines back in 1978, replanted them next to that block, which is called the Estrella. It's the Estrella clone. About a 200 case production wine. All the grapes from the Estrella program go into this program, and also some go into the Clydesdale, but Kristen hand selects some of the best barrels from these blocks to go into the Estrella program. This is the original clone that was planted on the Central Coast. So here it's history in a bottle. It's a beautiful wine. If you haven't tried it, I really, really highly recommend it. I mean, Zaca Mesa, we're known for our Syrahs. You can't go wrong. I mean, if you're a Syrah drinker, you like Syrah, or if you like just, you know, more full-bodied reds and you haven't tried our Syrahs before, I mean, this is, you know, a killer wine. It's a 90+ score wine in Enthusiast. Most of our Syrahs get over 90 points. They're awesome wines. Susan, kudos to you, Garrett. We thoroughly enjoy each week's tasting. Thank you, Susan. Opened the 14 with you. Excellent. Nice, Ray. 2014, that was the very first vintage of Estrella that we bottled. And the 14 actually has a little bit of that Black Bear Block in there because those vines that were from the that we, you know, did the cuttings of and planted, you know, they didn't, when they're young like that, they don't produce a lot. So to supplement, we actually have some of the grapes from Black Bear Block in that vintage. So that 2014 vintage has got a little bit of Black Bear in there too. So some of the old clone and the new clone. Alright guys, well, I think we'll wrap it up. Again, do not miss this Saturday. If you're gonna miss any of these tastings, Saturday is not the one you want to miss. We'll be sitting down with our head winemaker, Kristen Bryden, and we'll be tasting wine, we'll be talking wine. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Don't miss it. This Saturday at 5 o'clock on our Instagram page. You can watch any of my previous live tastings. Link is in our bio on Instagram to our YouTube page. Otherwise, it's been another fun tasting, guys. Thank you. I surely enjoy it. I hope you do. And I will hopefully see you guys on Saturday. Don't miss it. Email me, Garrett@zacamesa.com. If you need anything, questions, order some wine, go on our website. Cheers, everyone. Thanks again for watching.